Are you ready?
Ready.
All right, let's go. Kevin here, Top 1 Financial Advisor and best-selling author. We are here to talk about the stock market. Today, we need to talk about Visa because one of y'all in the comments said this. Hey, people are spending more money, inflation is up, we may or may not be going into a recession. Doesn't it make sense to invest in a company like Visa? Like, wouldn't this be a great, beneficial time to buy a company like that? And I thought about it. I said, look, let me put it on the list. And the more I started to think about it, the more I started to do some research, I said, hey, you might be on to something. So in today's video, we're going to talk a little bit about how Visa makes money. Is it a good investment? What I think about it? What are some other options that you may want to pay attention to? Okay, so first, their stock symbol is just V. It's one of the few companies that just have a single letter, single letter. I was going to say single digit, but that's more numbers. But single letter stock symbols, which is kind of cool. They've been around for obviously a very long time, and they are quite ubiquitous. Visa is everywhere you want to be, which was that MasterCard or was that Visa? I don't know. Anyway, aside from that, let's go ahead and kind of get more into it. So the whole premise here is that credit card debt is extremely high. In fact, we are at a record of $16.2 trillion, highest we've ever been in terms of credit card debt, which is generally a bad thing because credit card fees, as well as interest payments, can be quite high. However, for Visa, they actually make the majority of their money not from the interest. Actually, they're not a lender at all, so they make zero money from the interest. They make it from the merchant. So when you go and swipe your card at the grocery store or at a restaurant, the restaurant pays a small fee for that. That is how Visa gets the majority, not all, but the majority of their income. That is both a blessing and a curse. It is a blessing in that, let's say that things get worse. Let's say the unemployment starts to rise, which would not be good, and we go into a deeper recession or a more harmful recession, and people don't pay their credit card bills for whatever reason. That happens, right? That is a loss to credit card companies. Well, if you're Visa, that's not an issue for you because that's not a revenue stream for you. So you actually get to dodge that in some ways. On the opposite side of things, though, as interest rates start to rise and as the interest rates on credit cards start to rise, that is a higher revenue stream and more revenue that you may be able to capture if you're someone like American Express that is a lender. So again, you have a bigger pool to pull money, bigger pool to pull, I guess, money into if you're someone like American Express, but you're more of a one-trick pony rather, if you're something like a Visa. Again, blessing and a curse here. But there are some other things that you want to know. And I have so many notes here that I have to turn my tablet sideways as we go through a lot of this. So that's one thing that you need to know about Visa. They mostly get their fees from every time you swipe your card. You, as a consumer, aren't paying, but the merchant is. Which is why, when I lived in New York, I lived in Harlem, a lot of little bodegas would say, look, unless you're paying $5 or $7, don't swipe your card, just pay in cash, because they didn't want to pay that fee, which makes a lot of sense. Now, aside from that, what I like about Visa is their fundamentals. When you look at their most recent earnings report that came out like last week, you'll see that they are consistently making more money. They're bringing in more revenue, which helps to give them a higher line when it comes to net income. So that's the money you make after the bills. So for example, and I will make sure that this is on the screen too and highlight these areas. So revenue went over quarter. So from 2022 to 2021, the revenue went up from 6.1 billion to 7.2, and then we look at net income, it went from 2.5 billion to 3.4 billion. That's solid. That's solid. It's really hard to argue that. If I were to look at a price target for something like Visa, this is where things get a bit tricky because performance-wise, they've been okay, right? So over the last 6 months, they are down 7.8%. Compare that to the S&P 500. The S&P 500 is down 7.2% in the last 6 months. Both aren't great, but they're basically neck and neck. When I zoom out for the entire year, the S&P 500 is down 6% compared to Visa at 10. Now, Visa is underperforming the overall stock market, but at this rate, when everything is down, it's 4%. I'd like that to be a lot closer, if not Visa outperforming the stock market, but it's not enough for me to say an outright no. When I start to look at the chart though, and I look at how Visa has performed, and if I were going to trade it or at least start to dollar cost average and kind of pick my spots to get into this is where it gets a little bit tricky. Visa seems to be really bouncing between two areas. That area, and I'll put this on here as well and kind of highlight where I would like to get this, assuming that I even want a company like this, is around that $190 or so is where I would love to come and pick this up. If I were anxious to get into it right now, then like 208 is where I would hop in if I wanted to get into it a lot sooner, just based on how the chart is moving. Here's the thing though. There is no guarantee that Visa is going to come back down to 208. There's no guarantee that's even going to go down to 190. And if it did, that's the thing about trading. You're like, well, why would it fall so far to even begin with? Now, personally, I already have American Express. I got American Express because they have more ways to make money, and they cater to a more premium type of customer, which means that should things slow down, should we start to see bigger effects from a recession, usually those types of consumers aren't as impacted as me or regular consumers. They tend to be a little more insulated. But even when I look at someone's portfolio like a Warren Buffett, he has a lot more money in something like American Express than he does Visa, even though he does own both. And I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but he has like more than double the amount that he has in American Express than he does for Visa. And I'll actually add that note somewhere in this space just to double check it and verify for you there. So for me, it's a solid company. The more you zoom out, the better that Visa does. But you have a lot of options here, and each one of these companies is different. So if I look at MasterCard has actually outperformed Visa over the short term. And then you got American Express, which, depending on what time frame you look at, has done better. Sometimes has done worse than something like Visa. You do want to be very, very careful. What I do like, and the comfort I do take in this particular space, is this. They're not going anywhere. There is nothing on the horizon, in my view, that is going to take Visa out and just erase them from existence. They are even looking at crypto and how they can incorporate that. But in either case, whether it is your credit card or your debit card, you're going to have to swipe your card for something, unless you are going to go to a completely cash system and use cash any and everywhere. And that's not where the world is going by any stretch. That's just not something that's happening. So as long as cards exist, you're probably going to use it. Now, you could argue that, well, what if I just move straight to Apple Pay, straight to Cash App, straight to Zelle? You might have a point there, but I really don't see that being the dominant player in the short term. Maybe in 10 or 15 years, that might be an issue, but until then, I'm not necessarily sure. I could also say that when you use Apple Pay, that does pull up a card, and that card may still be Visa. We'll totally see how that's going to pan out. But it's a solid company, but it's not something that really gets me excited. If I were to give this a score of 1 being the worst and 10 being the most excited, I'm at like a 6. Now, part of that is because I already own American Express. So there's that, but it's okay. Like it's doing well enough compared to the market, but nothing that says like I have to absolutely jump on this company, regardless of what happens. I do think it is a solid company. So if you came to me and said, "Look, I just bought Visa. This is going to be a stock I'm going to hold for the next 5 years," I'm not going to be upset at you. I don't think that you have made a bad decision. I'll say that. But I think there are other companies that might fare a bit better over the short term. Many of some we've covered before. Even some of the chip stocks, I think, will be relatively solid over the next 2, 3, 4 years and beyond. Even if I'm looking at 1 year to 6 months, again, you might be okay, but there have been some companies that are still in the green. And I think if you're looking to make more money now, there might be something a little bit better than Visa. So those were just my thoughts. I did a lot of reading and didn't really come up with anything that was super substantial and just outright outstanding, even though this level of growth is still really good. Okay, so the fact that they're still bringing in more money, their earnings was positive, they were up more than 2% today. There's a lot to like about Visa, but it's nothing that's like, hey, I need to go get this stock now. I need to make sure that my kids go own this stock. I need to tell my in-laws about this stock. I just don't see that for something like Visa. I also didn't see it for anything like American Express. I told you all about it, but I wasn't, evangelizing. I wasn't evangelizing like that, which I don't really do anyway. But in any case, it's solid. It's okay. Definitely not a bad decision. I think it's something that is right in the middle, like definitely right in the middle, a solid kind of cornerstone, if you will. So those are my thoughts about it. Let me know what you think about these in the comments. Make sure that you check out our members only group where we post exclusive videos once every single week. All right, that is it for me. I'll talk to you later. Bye.